Imagine tuning in for what was hyped as one of the biggest Sunday night clashes of the season, only to watch the entire atmosphere collapse before the first snap. That's exactly what happened when the Cleveland Browns made one stunning call that didn't just cost them the game, it triggered a 40% drop in live viewers, millions of angry posts online, and a fan rebellion no one saw coming. This wasn't a typical loss, and it wasn't just about football. It became a story of business versus ego, a franchise's future versus a coach's decision, and the ripple effect stretched far beyond the stadium. Viewers didn't just change the channel, they walked out of sports bars, canceled subscriptions, even deleted their streaming apps mid-game. If you love digging into the untold stories that shake the sports world, the kind of drama that happens off the field as much as on it, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe right now, because you won't want to miss what comes next. So how does one quarterback decision shake an entire league, rattle sponsors, and force the NFL itself to step in behind the scenes? Let's rewind to the moment everything went wrong. It all started the moment the Browns' starting lineup went public. Fans had tuned in expecting to see Shedeur Sanders back under center, the rookie who turned routine games into must-watch events. Instead, they saw Joe Flacco jogging out for the opening drive, and that's when the numbers began to nosedive. According to multiple broadcast insiders, ratings plunged almost 40% within minutes of the announcement. It wasn't the slow fade you see when a blowout drags on too long. It was an instant stampede for the exits. Across the country, sports bars reported customers asking staff to change the channel before kickoff was even over. In living rooms, people closed their streaming apps mid-game. Social media feeds lit up with videos of fans literally turning off their TVs in protest. Clips that went viral on TikTok in real time as the broadcast was still running. One network executive, speaking off the record, described it bluntly. The moment Shedeur wasn't on the field, viewers simply stopped caring. It was like someone flipped a switch. This wasn't a ratings dip, it was an audience exodus. And it sent shockwaves straight to the NFL's front office, because when a primetime matchup featuring playoff contenders loses nearly half its audience before halftime, every sponsor, every network, every team owner starts paying attention. But the mass shutdown of TVs was just the beginning. The outrage that spilled onto social media would prove even more explosive. What happened on the field that night was ugly. But what happened online, that was a full-on digital revolt. The moment fans realized Shedeur Sanders was benched, Twitter's trending feed exploded. Within 10 minutes of kickoff, 3 hashtags shot straight to the top. Hashtag Play Shedeur, hashtag Fire Stefanski, and hashtag No Shedeur, No Watch. It wasn't the usual grumbling you see after a bad play. This was organized frustration. Fans banding together in real time to make sure the league couldn't ignore them. Screenshots flooded every platform, people posting the exact moment they turned their TVs off, time-stamped photos of the score bug frozen on screen. Others showed their subscription cancellation confirmations for NFL Sunday Ticket, adding captions like, "If Shedeur is not playing, neither am I." On TikTok, short clips of fans switching off the game or tossing remotes on the couch went viral, racking up millions of views before halftime. Some creators even added dramatic music and hashtags like "Justice for Shedeur." By the third quarter, it felt less like a football game and more like a coordinated boycott unfolding live. Sports bars reported something they'd never seen. Groups of customers standing up and walking out in the middle of a primetime matchup, then sharing the moment online with captions like, "We came for Sanders, not for punts." The backlash grew so intense that Instagram stories became a real-time protest wall. Influencers who rarely post about football were sharing their frustration. Memes of Stefanski as a stubborn chess player sacrificing his queen on the first move spread like wildfire. And then came the petitions. Within hours, fan-run accounts launched online campaigns demanding Sanders return as the starter. One Change.org petition reached 25,000 signatures before the post-game press conference even ended.
The momentum wasn't just viral, it was measurable. Social media analytics later revealed that posts about the Browns' quarterback decision outperformed the game's actual highlight clips by more than 300%. The conversation completely shifted from the scoreboard to the scandal. One viral tweet summed up the mood perfectly. "This is in football, it's malpractice. Bring back Shedeur or we bring down the ratings." That tweet alone hit 3 million impressions in under 2 hours, proving that this wasn't a small pocket of die-hard fans, it was the mainstream audience driving the narrative. Sponsors noticed. Comment sections under brand posts filled with angry replies like, "Stop paying the Browns until they start Sanders." It was a PR nightmare no one had anticipated. And here's what made it even more significant. This wasn't just a social media storm. It was a coordinated fan rebellion powerful enough to disrupt the NFL's usual Sunday night dominance. The hashtags weren't fading by Monday morning. They stayed at the top of trending lists into the work week, forcing analysts and sports networks to dedicate entire segments to the controversy. But while fans were waging their war online, the real panic was setting in behind closed doors because the financial fallout for the league, the networks, and the sponsors was already underway. While hashtags and highlight memes dominated social feeds, something far more serious was brewing in the background. The Browns' quarterback drama wasn't just bruising egos, it was bleeding cash. Primetime NFL games are one of the most valuable TV properties in the world. Networks pay billions for broadcast rights because they can count on two things: huge, consistent audiences and premium ad prices. The Browns-Lions matchup was supposed to deliver both. Instead, the sudden 40% ratings freefall detonated that business model in real time. By halftime, ad-buying departments inside major networks were in emergency calls with sponsors, trying to explain why their multi-million-dollar Sunday night slots had just lost nearly half the eyeballs they were promised. A senior network executive, speaking anonymously to avoid backlash, described the mood as panic in slow motion. "We can't have a single coach's decision wipe out our numbers like that. We built our entire night's ad inventory around Shedeur Sanders being on the field." The ripple effect didn't stop there. Brands that had spent months preparing national campaigns built around Sanders' rising stardom suddenly found themselves running commercials during a game that almost nobody was watching. A sports drink marketing director reportedly told colleagues, "We paid for the Sanders spotlight. Instead, we got empty seats and angry tweets. We're reconsidering next season's spend right now." Sponsors weren't just frustrated about the lost impressions, they worried about brand association. Instead of their products being tied to highlight reel throws and primetime energy, they were being linked to clips of furious fans canceling subscriptions and boycotting the broadcast. That's a nightmare no marketing team wants. Behind the scenes, the NFL itself stepped in. Sources close to the league say Monday morning meetings turned tense as executives questioned whether Cleveland's quarterback choice had crossed the line from a football decision into a league-wide business liability. The NFL, after all, sells entertainment as much as sport. A decision that drives fans away mid-game puts not just the Browns season at risk, it shakes the league's own bottom line. Network partners reportedly pushed back, hinting at future scheduling changes to pull Cleveland out of upcoming primetime windows if the controversy continued. That kind of threat is rare and a public humiliation for any franchise that loses its national slots. Local economics took a hit too. Cleveland area sports bars saw receipts dip as customers left early. Secondary market ticket prices began sliding that same night. Even nearby hotels and restaurants, which count on game day traffic, reported a noticeable drop in late-night business. What started as a coaching call had spiraled into an economic chain reaction. Ad revenues down, sponsors furious, local businesses losing foot traffic, the league's flagship product, its primetime audience, suddenly in jeopardy. And as the money fallout widened, the shockwaves finally reached the locker room because players know better than anyone that shrinking TV revenue eventually hits salaries and contracts. The backlash from fans and sponsors was loud, but inside the Browns facility, the tension was almost louder. Players may not post hashtags, but they notice everything. The boos from the stands, the empty seats, the headlines calling their season a disaster. By Monday morning, according to several team insiders, the locker room felt like two different worlds trying to coexist under one roof. One side quietly backing Shedeur Sanders, the other trying to stay loyal to the coaching staff even as confidence in the plan started to crack.
Veteran linemen were reportedly the first to voice frustration. For them, every stalled drive meant another 3-and-out, another exhausting series of blocking while the defense cools on the sideline. One offensive player, speaking off the record, put it bluntly, "We're not just losing games, we're losing the fans, the energy, and maybe even the locker room. That's harder to fix than a bad playbook." The defense felt the pressure even more. All season, they had been asked to carry the team, and now they were being left on the field for long stretches while the offense sputtered. A defensive captain reportedly told local reporters in hushed tones, "We prepare all week expecting a fight. Instead, we're gassed by the third quarter because drives don't last longer than a couple of minutes. That's not sustainable." Even Sanders, usually composed, the picture of professionalism, showed hints of frustration. Cameras caught him on the sideline during the Lions game, arms folded, shaking his head after yet another stalled series. At one point, he was seen leaning into an assistant coach during a heated exchange, gesturing toward the field as if to say, "This can't keep happening." Teammates close to Sanders described him as focused and still supportive, but also quietly deflated. For a player who'd electrified the fan base just weeks earlier, being reduced to a spectator cut deeper than most realized. Meanwhile, whispers about Stefanski's grip on the team began circulating in the locker room. Players were questioning whether the decision to keep Flacco at quarterback was purely tactical or something else, pride, politics, or stubbornness. The trust that holds a team together started to splinter. Coaches tried to keep the messaging consistent in team meetings. "We're sticking to the plan, stay focused, control what you can." But even those speeches reportedly rang hollow. After all, everyone could see the numbers on the screen: declining viewership, empty seats at practice, and fans protesting outside the facility with handmade signs reading, "Play number 12." One veteran was quoted saying to a teammate in private, "You can't ask us to fight for 60 minutes if the organization won't fight for the guy who gives us the best shot to win." For many players, the issue wasn't personal loyalty to Sanders alone. It was about the ripple effect. They know that TV money funds the salary cap. When games lose viewers, sponsors pull back, and league revenue dips, every contract across the NFL feels it eventually. That reality wasn't lost on the veterans nearing the end of their deals. This growing unease wasn't just about the quarterback battle, it was about the feeling that the franchise was drifting without a clear leader. The silence from the front office didn't help. While ownership publicly backed Stefanski, players could sense the cracks forming between the coach, the GM, and the locker room itself. By midweek, reporters noticed the change in tone at press conferences. Shorter answers, tighter smiles, a room full of athletes who looked like they were carrying more than just a losing record. The chaos inside the locker room mirrored the chaos outside the stadium gates. And as frustration built on the field, attention shifted to the next question the entire league was asking. How much longer would the front office let the Stefanski-Sanders standoff drag on before it tore the franchise apart? If the fan rebellion was the spark, the growing rift between head coach Kevin Stefanski and the Browns front office became the fire that threatened to burn the entire season down. For weeks, Stefanski's decision to keep Joe Flacco as the starter had been explained away as strategic. He insisted that Flacco's veteran presence gave them the best chance to win. But after the Detroit loss and the 40% viewership collapse, that explanation felt like a hollow echo. The fans weren't buying it, and increasingly, neither were the people inside his own building.
Sources close to the organization say that owner Jimmy Haslam was furious after the primetime disaster. Publicly, he played the part of the steady leader, preaching patience and unity. Privately, he reportedly grilled team executives late into the night, demanding to know why the coaching staff was sabotaging not just the team's record, but the franchise's reputation. General manager Andrew Berry found himself caught in the middle. He had staked a huge part of his long-term roster strategy on drafting Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback he believed could define the next decade of Browns football. According to one source familiar with internal discussions, Berry pushed hard in meetings after the Lions game, armed with analytics that showed Sanders' presence boosted both offensive efficiency and national viewership, but Stefanski wouldn't budge. That resistance turned a football debate into a political battle for control of the franchise. Was it the coach's right to play the veteran he trusted, or did the front office have a responsibility to protect the organization's brand, business, and future by insisting on the rookie? Every answer risked making someone look weak.
Inside the locker room, players sensed the strain. Meetings grew more formal, speeches felt forced, and the easy camaraderie that comes with a winning locker room started to fray. Assistants whispered about Stefanski's shorter fuse at practice. Even routine film sessions reportedly felt heavier, like everyone was waiting for the next blow-up. The coach himself appeared increasingly isolated. At press conferences, his usual calm, measured tone began to sound defensive. When pressed about the quarterback controversy, he stuck to the same line. Joe gives us the best chance to win, even as reporters pointed out the backlash. Viewers saw the tension in his posture, the clipped responses, the polite but unmistakable frustration. One veteran TV analyst put it bluntly during a national broadcast: Kevin isn't just coaching for wins anymore, he's coaching to keep control of his own sideline. That's a losing game. Behind the scenes, Haslam's patience was wearing thin. Several insiders claim that after the Lions' loss, he called an unscheduled late-night meeting with a handful of trusted advisors. The discussion reportedly turned to contingency plans, which assistant could serve as interim coach if the season spiraled further out of control, and whether a mid-season shakeup might save face with sponsors and fans. Firing a coach in the middle of a season is rare in Cleveland, not because the franchise has been a picture of stability, but because it's usually seen as a last resort move that signals complete failure from the top down. Haslam knew that pulling the trigger would invite another round of national ridicule, yet doing nothing risked watching the season and the brand sink even further. Meanwhile, Sanders' camp stayed quiet in public, but was said to be closely monitoring the situation. A source close to the rookie quarterback's representation told one reporter, "An organization shows its priorities through its decisions. That's what we're paying attention to." It was becoming clear to everyone in Berea, the Browns' headquarters, that the real battle wasn't just about who started at quarterback, it was about who truly ran the team. The coach on the sideline were the people signing the checks. As the tension escalated, even league officials began quietly voicing concerns about the optics. One league executive was quoted off the record saying, "The NFL is a business first. When a franchise's internal feud starts costing the league millions in lost viewership, someone has to blink." But no one blinked. Stefanski dug in. Berry lobbied behind closed doors. Haslam weighed drastic measures, and the rest of the roster was left stuck in the middle, watching their season become less about football and more about a high-stakes power struggle. The Browns had entered the season dreaming about a playoff run. Now, with the locker room on edge and their head coach locked in a public-private standoff with ownership, the question had shifted. Could the team survive its own civil war long enough to save the year, or was it already too late? The quarterback controversy had already fractured the locker room and shaken the team's season. But the real damage was spreading far outside the stadium walls, seeping into the city's economy, the franchise's reputation, and even the way the NFL thinks about its own business. For decades, Cleveland Browns football has been more than just a game for the city. Home games drive hotel bookings, fill restaurants on Saturday nights, and keep hundreds of local workers, from concession crews to parking lot attendants, employed through the season. When fans started walking away in protest, all of that began to wobble. Sports bar owners downtown reported the change almost immediately. Some had stocked up for a packed primetime crowd, only to see tables empty halfway through the game. One owner told a local paper, "We were ready for playoff energy. Instead, we had people asking for the check before halftime. That's never happened here." Secondary market ticket prices, once inflated thanks to Sanders' star power, started sliding fast. Season ticket holders quietly began listing seats online, some even at face value, a rarity for high-profile games. A few season ticket members reportedly called the Browns office to ask about early exits from their long-term packages, citing frustration with the direction of the team. Merchandise sales also dipped. Shops that had been selling Sanders jerseys by the rackful in September saw a sharp drop-off in October. One downtown clerk put it plainly, "People aren't buying if the guy they're rooting for isn't even on the field." But the fallout wasn't just economic, it was cultural. National media turned the Browns into a cautionary tale overnight, a case study on how not to run a franchise in the modern NFL. Podcasts devoted entire episodes to the saga. Headlines on major sports sites framed it as a business disaster in real time.
Even neutral fans around the league began to joke that Cleveland had found a new way to lose, not on the scoreboard, but at the box office. Recruiting and free agency could feel the hit next. Agents for upcoming free agents quietly warned their clients about the perception of dysfunction in Cleveland. A former league executive speaking on a podcast explained, "Top players pay attention to this stuff. If they think your team can't handle a star quarterback, they'll think twice about signing there, unless you overpay to convince them." It didn't stop there. League insiders started speculating about the long-term damage to the Browns brand. A respected draft analyst suggested that future quarterback prospects might see Cleveland as a career risk, worried that instability in the front office could derail their development. For the city of Cleveland itself, the controversy felt like deja vu. Fans who had endured decades of quarterback chaos and near misses were now watching the team squander what was supposed to be a new era of hope. Local talk radio callers described it as a betrayal, comparing it to the pain of losing playoff games, except this time, they said, the wound was self-inflicted. Even civic leaders began voicing concern. A local business group issued a statement about the potential impact on downtown commerce if attendance and enthusiasm continued to drop. They didn't name names, but the message was clear. A struggling Browns team hurts more than just the scoreboard. It hurts the heartbeat of the city. The fallout reached all the way up to the league offices in New York. Reports circulated that NFL schedulers had already started reevaluating Cleveland's future primetime slots, wary of risking another ratings collapse. Losing national TV exposure doesn't just bruise a team's ego, it cuts into their leverage for sponsorships and makes it harder to build a nationwide fan base. In the end, what began as a dispute over who should start at quarterback had spiraled into something much larger. A blow to local businesses, a warning sign to future players and sponsors, a dent in the city's morale, and a potential blueprint for how a single decision can ripple through an entire professional sports league. The Browns had entered the season hoping to redefine their identity on the field. Instead, they had redefined what an NFL crisis could look like off the field. And as the backlash grew and the losses piled up, one question loomed over everything. Would the front office make a move in time to salvage the season, or had the damage to their reputation already become permanent? For weeks, the headlines have focused on the Browns' losses on the field, the social media firestorm, and the sponsors demanding answers. But underneath all the chaos lies a question that no press conference soundbite has ever really touched. How much control do the fans actually have over the modern NFL? The Cleveland saga proved that this isn't just about one coach's stubbornness or one rookie sitting on the bench. A single decision rippled out to crash ratings, shake local businesses, and spark a fan-led boycott that rattled billion-dollar partners. If the league is as much entertainment company as sports league, then the audience isn't just watching. They're voting with their wallets, their remotes, their clicks. Stefanski may still be fighting to keep his job. The front office may still be trying to hold the roster together, but the real power shift already happened in plain sight. The moment hundreds of thousands of fans decided that if their quarterback wasn't on the field, they wouldn't be in the seats or on the broadcast either. That reality leaves the Browns with an uncomfortable choice. Do they double down on the coach's authority and risk bleeding more support, or do they bow to public pressure and admit that the business side of football has already overruled the football side? Either path carries a cost: pride, credibility, or the franchise's future. And for Shedeur Sanders, the next few weeks could shape not just his rookie season, but his entire career arc. A city once convinced it had finally found its franchise quarterback is now watching to see whether he stays patient or begins to wonder whether his future lies somewhere else. Meanwhile, the league office is quietly watching Cleveland like a stress test. If one team's internal feud can tank national viewership overnight, what happens the next time a franchise benches a star who sells tickets and commercials? It's a question with no easy answer, and one that reaches far beyond Cleveland. Because if the Browns' collapse revealed anything, it's that the business of professional football has entered a new era, where fans can punish a decision instantly, and where entertainment value can outweigh even a coach's game plan. As the dust settles, one thing is certain. Cleveland didn't just lose a football game that night. They lost trust, momentum, and possibly a piece of their future. The real scoreboard won't be measured in wins and losses. It'll be counted in ratings, revenue, and the loyalty of a fan base that's running out of patience. So as the Browns head into the rest of the season with a locker room on edge and a city demanding answers, the question lingers. Will someone in Cleveland step up to restore sanity? Or will this saga become the playbook for how a single stubborn decision can unravel an entire franchise?